Good evening, YouTube. This is Kaylin String coming at you with my regular Sunday night dinner. And I am going to be doing this a couple of different times. So last Sunday, for those that either caught it live or watched the replay, I did a 2021 Canadian IMP, a beef ravioli. So what I'm doing, as I pull up the chat on my tablet so it's easier for me to read that, since my phone is mounted above my table, I am going to do this 24 pack. There's the date code right there. This US MRE menu 18 beef ravioli. This is the packaging that all of the menus come in. And I discovered that this one actually has a bit of a tear notch right there. It actually took a fair amount of force because this clear part of the packaging is actually as thick as the tan part, so it makes it a little more difficult to open. So it does offer a little bit more protection for the items. Now let's see what this one has to offer. So I'm going to take this out first. This is ingredients and nutritional information for the beef ravioli. It looks like one of these items might have gotten sealed into the bag itself. Italian breadsticks. That's a nice thing to have for an Italian themed meal. This is a carbohydrate electrolyte fruit punch. In the shaker bag. Got the standard MRE spoon. A very sparse accessory pack that is in a bag that could hold 3 times this. There's matches TP, salt, a wet wipe, and gum. That is it. Nothing else, so not even worth bothering to open that. No coffee, but I've already got that planned. Got the FRH. I don't use these, but I save them. Just like the spoon, I don't use it, but I save it. It goes into my stash of plastic utensils. Here is the beef ravioli pouch. Got some smaller items. Got a powdered hot sauce. Got the chocolate M&Ms. Then the basic cheese spread. Well, the recovery bar was not sealed in there, but it sure felt like it did from the way this is packed. This is the salted caramel recovery bar. Those are actually pretty good. And that is it for that. The back of these sleeves always has something like tips for the soldier in the field. Actually, I was upside down, but so I will keep that handy off to the side for, I opened those up, I'll bring that up later on. Now, I'm going to do something a little different. Instead of this fruit punch, I will save this for another day. And I got an American orange for the drinking jar. So last week I had a Canadian orange sports drink, so I pulled an American orange out. You can see all the dust that these things create. Still not all of it came out. I have a plastic bag off the side that I'll be putting my trash in. Cliff is here. Waffles is here. Time and Tide. Royal Bloodline. Cats and Meow Mix. Some new names, thanks for dropping in. I do these every Sunday at 7 p.m. U.S. Central Time. I'm in the state of Iowa. That'll be 8 p.m. Eastern U.S. For those in other countries, depending on which side of the planet you're on, you can figure that out accordingly. Now these drink powders, the sugar-based ones take a whole lot more time to dissolve. That's why I tend to mix these first before doing anything else. See, this looks a lot different than the Canadian orange. Even the powder looks different. That will get another mix later on. And because these 24s do not all have coffee, I'm going to rectify that. Out of that last packet of goodies I got a coffee instant type 2. So this is a spray-dried coffee, so it's very fine. And of course I'll have my own creamer and sugar. So what I will do now is I will take this into the kitchen, put this in a pot, and I'll heat this that way. Dan Wilson is here. Thanks for dropping in. I love seeing names I had not seen in here before. That's pretty darn awesome. And all those items I do not use, I save. So that drink powder will go into my stash to bring out another day. So I have another kettle on the stove that I will use to, or that I will bring the hot water in for my coffee. And I'll be right back. I am back. I took the kettle back into the kitchen. I do not have a large space to work with to keep it out here, plus I have no further need for it. Light colored or blonde and sweet is how I like my coffee anyway, so I like the Nescafe 3-in-1 coffee, that the sweet and creamy that the Canadian IMPs have. Although I do like that espresso roast also when I am able to get a hold of one of those, which is very rare these days. Not that I get a whole lot of IMPs in anyway. I do have one more that's a newer pack. I will set that there. I'm actually going to put the cheese spread on top of the coffee. Now when you get candy in a ration, that is a big morale booster for the soldier in the field. You do not always get a commercial candy like this in an American ration, but sometimes you do. Okay, let me I just modified you, Waffles. Next time you type something, you will see a blue wrench next to your name. Yeah, you have been modified. I hope you can live with that. I'm going to open these Italian breadsticks. They stick an oxygen absorber to this. So I will get that out. There is a shadow here. Thanks for dropping in. This is a 2024 pack US MRE beef ravioli. Last week, I opened up a Canadian beef ravioli. This is the recovery bar. I would like to see different flavors of this bar besides the salted caramel, but it is a good one. And these are double packed. Chosuk is here. Thanks for dropping in. So this is just the inner wrapper for that recovery bar. I like that you get bars like this that are double wrapped. It just gives them a little bit more protection. And that's what it looks like. Mike Kreischer is here. Thanks for dropping in. I will go ahead and answer that question. We Ration reviewers do this because it is an enjoyable hobby and it allows people to see what rations from not only the US look like, both military and civilian. It also gives us a chance to check out different time periods for rations. Now, putting the cheese spread on top of the coffee allowed it to warm up a little bit. So it will come out a little bit softer. In fact, I will leave it there while I go get the ravioli off of the stove. So I'll be right back with that. I am back. I use this to bring it from the kitchen simply because it's easier, and I have a paper towel that I will use to dry it off with. Makes it easier to handle. These pouches, they are boiling. Spicy tuna rolls is here. Now, those of us who are into emergency preparedness may stock rations of different types as part of an emergency food supply. Not everyone may choose to do that, but some do. I don't have a whole lot of space to keep a whole lot of rations. I live in a small apartment. By the way, I shake the food down. The tear notch on these pouches goes this way. On some pouches, depending on the country or time, it will go this way, but I shake it this way. That way, when I go to pull this across, I don't have a huge mess. Now this sauce, like the Canadian ravioli sauce, is quite thick. Somewhat similar in color. The raviolis are smaller than the Canadian ones, so it may appear to be more of them. And like the Canadian ravioli, there is meat in the sauce. Now this is still very hot, so I'm using the paper towel so I'm not burning my paws. These are listed to have 8 ounces. Of course, you'd never get every single milligram out of it. You always have some bits left behind. There is Curious Pete here. Thanks for dropping in. So this is the size of the ravioli. You can see how small that is. The Canadian raviolis were almost double the size of this one. Now you can see the meat in the sauce. This tastes just like what you would get from Chef Boyardee, or maybe a store brand. There is a lot of the ground beef in the sauce. I was just checking the chat to see if anyone new had popped in. When you're going into these chats, make sure that you change it to live chat. That way you see all of the comments. If you leave it on top chat, you only see a portion. And now there's an additional setting where you can see the super chats. When someone leaves a super chat, but not everybody leaves a super chat every time in any of these chats, and some monetized channels don't have the super chats enabled, some do. I'm going to go ahead and open up the cheese spread. Look at Master, another new name. Thanks for dropping in. I hope you all are enjoying these streams. I'm going to put a little bit of the cheese spread. Actually, first I will show you a close-up of the breadstick after I've taken them apart. You can see the seasoning throughout and on the back, but it's based on the wheat snack bread recipe. In fact, I'm just going to take a little bit fell down there, but that's okay. I will be putting some of it on the ravioli anyway, but this is, when you warm the cheese spread, it makes it easier to spread. I do enjoy the breadsticks as well. They have a lot more flavor than just their plain old snack bread. Now there is a bit of the cheese with the ravioli. The basic cheese spread to me is extremely salty. But when you get the cheese spread with jalapenos, that jalapeno cuts through some of that saltiness. And it actually makes that cheese sauce a little bit more enjoyable. But having eaten the Canadian ravioli last week, I like the flavor of it better. I like the fact that you get bigger raviolis, although these small ones will obviously be very easy to eat. But the Canadian one just had more flavor. But I'm still enjoying this one since this one is fresh. It is a 24 pack. So I am liking that for sure. There are some sites that sell ration components, or maybe even eBay. You might be able to find the breadsticks either by themselves in a bulk lot, or you can get a mixed lot that may have them. I'm actually glad to see these, because I would have been disappointed if I would have just got wheat snack bread or plain tortillas, which I think would have been inappropriate for this. One thing I could have done is actually warm the breadsticks. I have done that in the past, and that is another nice thing to do. I don't know, it just brings out the flavor a little bit when you warm it. Oh, that's good. I'm glad he's starting to feel better. I was around people earlier today who have been sick. In fact, one of my sisters actually had the big nasty, the thing that started in late 2019 and got here to the US in 2020. Yeah, she is just starting to get over that. She's past the contagious stage, but I still may do a test. But she felt good enough to go over to my oldest sister's house, being that they celebrate Easter, although I do not. Muslims don't celebrate Easter, but their family, I go hang out. And I took some Turkish delights over there. And some of them tried it. Some of them have had them before and liked them, so they took a few. And there are a few people who were not able to come over because they were working or they had gone to visit others. Yeah, my brother was working, and my older nephew was working, and my great niece was away. And then another relative who would have come out, but he had gone elsewhere. But food is being saved for all of them. But my younger nephew and his wife were there. My niece was there. But her boyfriend had gone to Nebraska to do a job. And my sister, who had the ankle surgery last December, is not healing up as well as she had hoped because she's having trouble getting water therapy arranged, even though her insurance company had approved it. It's just that the place that has been approved is not scheduling her for an initial assessment. So she's just going to have to keep putting the bug in her ear and maybe contacting the main physical therapy place where she has been doing basic physical therapy, but they wanted to do water therapy. But if she can't get an initial assessment scheduled, they're going to have to come up with a plan B. But she drives. She is wearing an ankle brace and she uses a pink cane. Yes, her cane had to be pink. She wouldn't accept any other color. Yeah, Cliff's a keeper. Yeah, we can't let him get away that easy. Yeah, my mom enjoyed herself as well. Gonna have a drink of my coffee. It's been a long time since I had a type 2. I would have preferred a type 1, but I'll take a type 2 over some of the more recent coffees that have been in US MREs. The Genio coffee, it's okay. The Bill's Brew, it's okay. I have had a lot worse than those, but I've also had better. But that type 2, it's not bad. I'm putting a ravioli on a piece of the breadstick just for the heck of it. Yeah, the espresso roast coffee that used to be in a lot of IMPs. That's some good stuff. I think I've only had that maybe twice. The rest of the time has been the Nescafe Sweet and Creamy, which I like, but when it comes to an instant 3-in-1 coffee, I'd rather have the G7. I almost thought about busting into that bag and pulling one of those out, but I decided, nah, I'm going to go with mixing up my own, so that's what I did. Yeah, my oldest sister had a beef tenderloin that she roasted. And then she had a ham that was cooked in a crock pot. She had 3 crock pots going. She had the mashed potatoes from real potatoes, not the instant. She had those in a pot, and then she had green beans with regular pork bacon in another, but she had some turkey bacon, so she did some green beans in another smaller pot that she had put inside of the crock pot. So they were seasoned the same, only that turkey bacon was put in there instead of the pork bacon. So I ate some of that, and then I think a couple others might have eaten some of that. And so I brought the rest of that home. And I have a couple pieces of the beef roast with the potatoes in a container. There's also some pies. I ate a piece of the strawberry rhubarb pie there, and I brought a piece of cherry pie home. And then there was a relish tray that one of my sisters did with olives, a couple different pickles, and then a couple of different kinds of grapes. And then we also had another container with pieces of pineapple and watermelon together, and then some Hawaiian rolls. So I brought some of the grapes home and some of the rolls. Well, the Nescafe may be a U.S. brand, but it may actually be packed in Canada. I'll have to, when I open up the other IMP that I have, I'll have to look at that packet more closely to see if that is actually made in the US or if it's made in Canada. You know, the peanut butter and the jelly in that one are US packed by the same company that does it for the US MREs, but for the Canadian contract, they had a different recipe that they would follow. Well, time and tide, if I could upload something, I would, but that technology does not exist yet. We'd have to go into the future for that. But that sounds like something creative redundancy would say. If he were in this chat, he would be going after some food himself. Now, the cheese spread having cooled down, it's a little bit harder to squeeze out, but I'm okay with that. I got another bite with the cheese spread on the ravioli. Yeah, that would be nice. If, if we had that available, we could have all kinds of things that we want that we otherwise couldn't get. It would be the same with transporters. If we had those available, I could go out and play in the woods. Or I could go to Lake Icari whenever I want, instead of having to rely on a driver. I just finished off the cheese spread. If I had done this when this was hotter, the cheese would melt, but it's still going to work. I think it would be nicer if I had Parmesan cheese, which you could have easily done. I could have gone to my kitchen and got my Parmesan cheese, but I decided not to. Of course, in the Canadian IMP, you did not get the cheese sauce. You got the peanut butter and the jam or jelly for the hamburger bun. But at least there's something to add to it, and also to put on the breadsticks. That drink mix does need stirred up a little bit. Still a little bit of the sugar on the bottom. Now the closest thing you'll get to the chili flake will be this hot sauce powder, which I think is a nice addition. It's definitely different. Here, see how, I hope this is readable. I'm holding up the back of the packet to show the ingredients. I don't know how well this is going to work, but I'm getting the shadow. Actually, I think I need to. Not sure how well that works, but it's kind of like a few extra ingredients added to your basic Tabasco or Frank's Red Hot recipe. .035 ounce. Or that just barely makes 1 gram. And this is Transpackers, the company that does this. Yeah, if those were like the lighter version of the corn nuggets and not the legit corn nuts, which are the whole kernel corn. Yeah, I can see those not holding up well because it doesn't take much for those things to go bad. The actual corn nuts, I think they hold up better over time. Yeah, the corn nuts are the whole kernel corn, whereas the corn nuggets is cornmeal that has been processed to about the approximate size of a kernel of corn, or maybe some no bigger than an M&M. Those can be hit or miss. There's the actual corn nuts. You cannot go wrong with those. Gonna go for another breadstick. You know, the combos, when you get the combos, I have not had a bad pack of those yet. I've not had a bad pack of the corn nuts yet. But those corn nuggets, yeah, I've had some bad ones. But don't have to worry about that here tonight. I do have that experimental brown bag long range patrol ration. That I may be pulling out in the near future. I am definitely looking forward to digging into that. I don't know if I've ever seen anyone review any of those on camera. I haven't looked to see if anyone has. And I don't know if all of them would have had that white label put on it like the one that I got. I got it from MRE Mountain. And again, that site can be hit or miss. But that one happened to be on sale. So I decided to go ahead and go for it. It's something I had not seen before. Tim Riley is here. Thanks for dropping in. Good to see you here. Yeah, last week was the Canadian ravioli. This is the US ravioli. Only thing different with this one was no hot drink, no coffee. So I just got coffee from a stash. And this one had the fruit punch, but I pulled an orange since I had an orange drink last time. Basically doing a comparison between the two. The Canadian ravioli was from 2021. It has a lot better flavor. It did not need anything added to it whatsoever. Although I'm sure it would have been good with a shot of Parmesan cheese on it. This cheese spread just makes it taste a little saltier. But to me, this cheese spread, this plain cheese spread, is very salty. So again, this is the accessory pack. Those are those tiny packets of salt. The rear roll, I believe that's the peppermint gum, matches, and a wet wipe. And the bag is so big, you could put 3 times. You could 3 sets of these items to fill this bag. I don't know why they're getting stingy with the coffee. I'm surprised they didn't put this in here. That's why I didn't bother to open the accessory bag, because I saw it. No, there's nothing in there I'm going to be messing with. Of course, what I do off camera is I open those up and I'll put the wet wipe in a bag with other wet wipes. I'll put this in a bag with my other ration seasonings, salt, pepper, and whatever other seasoning packets. Although the liquid ones, they go in a bag and I keep those in my fridge. You know, the gum will go in a bag with other packets of gum. And those accessory packs that I got in that last package that I opened up, I did the same thing. I opened them up, I split them up. Oh, the rear rolls got put together, the wet wipes got put together. The 2 that had matches in it, those matchbooks got put in a bag where I have some other ones. So that's how I store stuff like that. I have a bag with nothing but flameless ration heater bags. And if they come with the water pouch, I actually save those and I have those in a container. And this is that salted caramel recovery bar. It looks like a Rice Krispie bar, kind of shiny. I can taste the caramel. It's a bit dense, kind of like some of those protein bars that have the rice in them. But you can see, I think it has oats in here as well. Now that, it looks like an oat right there, but I can taste a bit of the salt, but the caramel flavor does come through. That is not overly salty where you don't get any of the sweetness. I actually like those. Those are good bars. I'm curious if those are available in other flavors. I would hope so. Yeah, my oldest sister's dog, Lily, was wanting to observe everything that we were doing. It rained all day today, so every time she went outside, she would come back in and she would be wet just from walking out in the rain. Yeah, I hope that dog is okay after eating something that it should not have. We are still having drizzle, 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Feels like 40 degrees, so my backup phone is yeah, yeah, the wind is a bit is from the north. So that's why the wind chill is what it is. But we basically had this rain off and on all day. So I made myself some hot tea after I got home, and I put stuff away. MGT Fitzgerald, thanks for dropping in. This is a 2024 pack US MRE menu 18. I wanted to go ahead and bring this one out to do kind of a comparison between it and the 2021 pack Canadian Ration beef ravioli. This one did not have any coffee in it, no hot drink option of any kind, which I think is stupid what they've done with that. I was just checking my power bank. It's at 84%. But this one came with a tropical punch, but I pulled an orange since I had an orange drink last week. This looks a lot different. It tastes different than a Canadian orange drink. I like the Canadian orange drink just a little bit better. Yeah, I've heard about those third strikes. It would be interesting to see someone else get a hold of one of those. And of course, Steve 1989 got a hold of a very fresh French version of a first strike ration. A lot heavier than an American version. A lot more wet pack items. Very unique things. That one was definitely an interesting ration for sure. So if you haven't seen that one out, or that video, it's out. I would definitely recommend checking it out later. Even some of the packaging was a little unique for some of those items, and I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, those third strike rations, I'm definitely curious about those. I happen to have a first strike ration that I will be getting into also in the near future. I have a British ORP. And then I have that civilian 24-hour ration that MRE Star produced, that MRE Mountain sold. That one was on sale, so I got a hold of it. Yeah, some of those things I got purely out of curiosity. There are a lot of them that I would love to get a hold of, but because of their location, I'm just not going to take that risk. I'm putting, again, some of this on my last bite of breadstick with some more of the cheese. I also want to try some of the new MCW menus that are using the commercial Mountain House pouches instead of the tan colored ones that are almost like that color. Of course, the commercial Mountain House pouches have a zip seal at the top, whereas those other ones, you don't have that, and you had to fold it over. And if you didn't have any kind of a clip, and because they don't stand up very well, you run the risk of losing some of your food out of them. Readiness Rations, the companion channel to Readiness Reviews, he opened up a 2021 beef stroganoff MCW that still had the old Mountain House packaging instead of the commercial Pro Pack, as they call it, that you can just go into a store and buy without having to get the whole ration. So if they're the same as from like La Briute, that's where my kosher ones came from, the La Briute brand, which replaced My Own Meals. I would like to try some more of the La Briute ones. I just wish that they would have more variety in the accessory pack, but I do like some of the items that they do put in. I just wish they would have kept some of the items that My Own Meals put in theirs. Thanks for dropping in, Mike. I hope you have a good rest of the evening. I got a new week. This coming Saturday, we are doing some flower planting at the mosque. We're going to put roses along the fence. So someone is going to be donating those. I don't know if they're going to be fence climbers or just a basic bush. But there may be some other plants being put in. Plus, where we had the tent for Ramadan and the Eid party, that whole area has to be reseeded because the grass pretty much got worn down. And because it never got any sun on it for over a month, some of that grass is yellowed. So that area will have to be dealt with as well. But I'll tell you, that tent sure held up. It held up to the strong winds that we had during March and first few days of this month. And those water weights, I did a short on those. Plus, I tossed up a community post with a picture of that. And then I had a screenshot of the fillable barriers or barricades that you can also, that construction companies get, you know, or other businesses may get if they need to block off a portion of a parking lot or a driveway or a delivery area or whatever. They can get these fillable barriers that they can either fill with water or something like sand or cat litter to the desired weight that they want. And then when they're done with it, they just dump it out, take that thing away. You have less weight to haul back. Of course, you have to have access to the water to fill it. But I've seen those by the gas pumps at the Sam's Club here in Des Moines, and I've seen them elsewhere. But those water weights that came with the tent, the company that we rented the tent from, they sent a crew to put that together, and then they just put a hose off the spigot on the side of the mosque and filled them. And then when they went to take the tent down, all they had to do was just empty it and water the grass with it. I'll just say, Fitzgerald, have a good rest of the night. Thanks for dropping in. Hope to see you again soon. I hope you enjoyed this review. And I'll come up with something different next week. I may bust into one of my 24-hour rations. I may go for a halal one, or I may go for that experimental long-range patrol ration, or I may get into one of my other 2024 pack US MREs. I'll make that decision this coming weekend what I decide to do. Go ahead and have a munch on some of these M&Ms. And it's nice to see something like this, although you would not want these in a hot climate. I would not want to be out in the middle of a desert on a super hot day opening up these M&Ms that could be one solid mass or one molten mass. Unless it's kept in a cooler or some kind of climate controlled environment, but when you have something like this and you're out in the field with it, that would definitely be a morale booster. I just hope they start putting the coffees back in all the MREs. But if you don't want the coffee, you can always save it for another time, or trade it with someone else for something else. I was looking through my rations to decide what I'm going to pull out, and plus rearranging a couple of them. I saw an orange bag, so I know one of them has Reese's Pieces in them. I don't think it'll be the peanut butter M&Ms because I definitely know that orange of a Reese's Pieces bag. Yeah, I don't celebrate Easter, so there's no bunny hopping here. Unless a resident here has a rabbit, but I haven't heard of such. Now, taking a sip of the coffee kind of brought out the caramel flavor a little bit more. Yeah, Tim, they must have employed Polish giants for that flick. Wouldn't surprise me if they did. Yeah, those actually are a thing. Many years ago, I was actually watching TV, and a local TV station had an Animal Rescue League segment, and they were showing a Polish giant rabbit, a purebred, that they had in a shelter, and a black with kind of white speckles. Really cool looking rabbit. I wanted that rabbit, but there's no way I could do that. Yep, you can get very clever with the filming, with the editing. Still had to use Polish giant rabbits. I just thought of something else I could do. I have two MREs, both labeled as having tuna in them. One does not have tuna in it. What I'm seriously thinking of doing is in a stream opening up both of those. One of them also happens to have a barcode label on it that was stuck on their brother's cellar, or a previous seller. But I'm seriously thinking of opening both of those, but not eating the tuna one, just showing what's in it compared to the one that says it has tuna but it has something else in it. I think some of them had chicken in it, some have the jalapeno beef patty. I think mine has a jalapeno beef patty in it, which I happen to like that beef patty. I happen to have a Canadian hamburger bun. I would use that with that jalapeno beef patty. There is Lyric. Thanks for dropping in. You're looking at what is left of this 2024 pack Menu 18 beef ravioli. Last week I opened up a 2021 Canadian IMP or individual meal pack beef ravioli. Had some different things in it compared to this one. It had a Wonder Bar for a candy bar. This one has M&Ms. This one came with no coffee, so I got a coffee instant type 2 from my stash, plus some sugar and creamer from my kitchen. This one came with an electrolyte fruit punch, but I had an orange sports drink last week from the Canadian ration, so I pulled an orange drink for tonight, and I will save that fruit punch for another day. This is a salted caramel recovery bar that's got some oats. It's like a dense Rice Krispie bar with oats and some other stuff in it. These are actually really good. I'd love to see other flavors. The Canadian ravioli is better. The flavor's better. The raviolis themselves are bigger. I do like that both have a thick sauce, but there's something about the American ravioli. It tastes like what you get right out of a Chef Boyardee can. Whereas the Canadian one, the sauce had a little bit more flavor than just tomato. There may have been some other seasonings in it. Plus, the meat in the ravioli was a little bit different than the ground beef that was in the sauce. A little bit different texture. And there may have been some cheese in those raviolis as well. But it just had a better flavor overall. Didn't need to add anything to it. I added some of the cheese spread, but it just made it a little too salty. Now both are fine with Parmesan cheese. I would have put Parmesan cheese on that Canadian one, but I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to eat it straight up without anything. It came with Tabasco, but I never opened that packet because I would not put that on a ravioli. I would save that for something that would actually call for a spicy sauce or something like this hot sauce powder. It's basically like a Tabasco type sauce, but dried and powdered. And then a few other ingredients for processing. Maybe as an anti-caking agent. Stuff that you wouldn't normally find in a hot sauce. No, never had a Slovenian. I've had a few Lithuanian rations in the past. I would love to try some newer ones. I think the menus may be the same, but there may be a few side item differences, maybe some packaging differences, but the outer bag looks to be the same as it has been. I think, unless there have been some additional changes that I have not seen. I have not been able to get a hold of another German ration since I did a civilian one years ago when Foreign MRE was able to sell them. I've enjoyed all of the Norwegian Arctic field rations that I've had. There are some of those menus that I would definitely get again, and there are some that I have not tried that I want to. I've never had a Dutch or a Danish or Swedish. I've never had a UN ration. And although it would be an extremely difficult thing for me to get a hold of, I would love to get a hold of a ration that actually came from a Middle Eastern country. That would that would be a bucket list item for sure. Yep, I think you're right on that one. I saw someone open up one that was labeled a Lithuanian, but it looked like the previous style ORP bag with the handle, and everything looked like the packaging that you would get from items in a real British ORP. And then I recently saw one it was labeled as a UN or Polish humanitarian ration, but a lot of it was packed by Humipsa of Spain. Some pronounce it Jomipsa, but I pronounce it Humipsa, using correct Spanish pronunciation. But those, a lot of those were sent into Ukraine. Not only to supplement their own rations, but possibly to give to people who had to evacuate their home areas to find a safe place to stay. But some of those were British items, some were Spanish produced, but all put together by Artipol, which is the company that does the rations for Poland. Yeah, I would like to try some of their newer ones. And what I've seen of the newest version of the ORP, eats, treats, and MREs. She got a hold of some fairly fresh ones. Of course, she's right there in England, so it's easy for her to get them. But the zip top on some of those bags were not all the way closed, and she suspected that some of the items may have fallen out during packaging, and those zip bags are not closed. Someone said that it could be, you know, they're left open so the air could be squeezed out, but you could squeeze the air out and then close the zipper. Just like any Ziploc bag, you can do that in order to compact it for packing into the box. But from what she has done, she's done some digging on it. The majority of the people who filled out the surveys were from one particular ethnic group that whose members serve in the British military. According to what she found, more of those people filled out those surveys, and what they wanted was more vegetarian and bean based. And so that's what the ration packer has been putting in to those bags. And a lot of the menus, they're repeats, and some of the items are just either completely missing compared to the older ORPs, or they're just not that good. But the idea of having a zip top bag, it would be easy to close it back up to contain the items that you have not used yet. Or when you're done, you can pack out, you can put all your trash in it, close that up, easy to toss, contain any mess. May not be all that great at containing odor, but you still get a big Ziploc bag in there with all the accessory items. You could still use that for your unused items or for trash or whatever, or you need to use it to keep a larger item dry. That's one thing I also like about the Canadian bags. Until you open them, they are completely waterproof. Unless the bag is punctured, but you open that zipper, you might still have a little bit of air getting in, but outside of water getting right into that little hole, you could still keep things pretty much dry, or at least keep things clean if you have to put it down in the dirt. So I do like those. Now, if the U.S. First Strike ration would have something like that, because once you open those bags, you can't reseal them unless you have access to some tape or a big old rubber band like you get in Australian CR1M. In the older Lithuanian rations, you got a zip tie. When you go to pack out your trash, you could put all your trash in the bag, and then you could close that bag up with the zip tie. Of course, a few Lithuanian rations that I did get a hold of, I have saved all those zip ties. Sorry about that. Had to take out the trash. Yeah, so I have saved those zip ties. In fact, on occasion I have, yeah, I carry zip ties on me in my daily bag. In fact, I have used them. I had a few of them that I actually used in the supply room of my mosque to, some wire shelves that we have. They're on a support, but they had come unwelded. So I just took a zip tie, put it around the shelf wire through the hole of that support that it was attached to, and then I just pulled on it hard to zip it. So now those shelves won't come off so easy because I did that. Oh, that's okay. At least you got to see the trash before it was tossed. But there'll be another time. Sometimes the connection can be slow when you're trying to do that, because I have to deal with the slow connection myself. Sometimes I freeze up or my chat freezes because I'm doing it on my tablet. It can be a bit of a problem, so I usually leave it to the other mods. That's okay. In fact, what I did for, I was in a chat and someone who just got modified, I told that person, I'll give you some practice. You can put me in timeout. You can see how that works. When the timeout ends, I'll let you know how long I was in the timeout, what I could and could not do. So I did that. So that person put me in timeout, and that was a 5-minute one. So when the timeout ended, I said that I could still watch the stream, I could read the chat, I just could not put anything in. Yeah, I did not mind at all letting a new mod put me in timeout for practice. But once you get the hang of it, usually, I will If I do jump on something, for the most part, I'll just either uh, remove the comment or time out, and then someone else usually boots that person if that is needed. But sometimes with my slow connection, I have been known to put the wrong person in timeout, or I accidentally booted somebody, and then that person had to be allowed back in by the channel owner. But that's the way it goes sometimes. And most of the time, I just let the other mods handle it. And even when it comes to putting links in, I prefer to let others do it, because when you're watching on a tablet, I have to open up another tab, which pauses the stream. I don't completely lose it, but it takes a long time for me to bring up what I want to grab the link for, and then kill that tab, and then go back to the chat, try to put it in, and sometimes I can freeze up that way. So I usually prefer to let those with a better connection or who are watching on a computer do that. Thanks for dropping in, Waffles. Hope to see you another time. I don't know if Smokey was on last night. I don't think I was. I never saw anything that he was. He may still be having issues with projects, or the old pup Stella may be having some issues that he's having to deal with. Or he could have been affected by a storm. There have been some nasty storms again lately. We just had rain off and on all day here in Des Moines. But some places south and east of here have had tornado watches and warnings. Although I didn't turn it on or go into it, Ryan Hall, the channel name is Ryan Hall Y'all, all he does is weather. That's all he does. He does a lot of live streaming. He can go for hours at a time depending on the weather that's going on. He has a network of people that he can contact in different places around the country for live local conditions. But that's all he does is weather. And then he'll mix in a fundraiser to raise money for disaster areas, like after the Greenfield, Iowa tornado. He did a fundraiser to raise money to get supplies to be brought into Greenfield. And he's done that for other areas, so I think he did that after the hurricanes that ripped through a few states last year. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's been doing that again, but weather is his thing. That's all he does. I'm not sure if he's still alive. I'm not going to try to pull up another tab to check, but that's a channel I definitely recommend. I also follow an Iowa storm chaser. Sometimes he'll pop up a live, or he'll pop up a video of where he's traveling following storms. Yeah, he sends his reports right to the local National Weather Service office. And I think he contacts county emergency management offices in the area where he may be roaming, or he may contact sheriff office or a police department or something. But yeah, I subscribe to an Iowa Storm Chasers YouTube channel. I don't see him on a whole lot, nowhere near as much as Ryan Hall is on, but if I can catch him live, I usually do. But weather has been weird lately. In fact, we are talking about weather over at my sister's house. When my mom and one of my sisters went down to Oklahoma to see a longtime family friend who had her 90th birthday earlier this month. It was actually chilly down in Oklahoma City. The few days that they spent down there. And even for Oklahoma City, that can be a bit unusual to be that chilly. Like it was up here. Yeah, this friend and her late husband were actually known to my mom and dad before my oldest sister was even born, or shortly after. So I saw her pictures on Facebook. And I'll tell you, she looks pretty darn good for being 90. She lives alone. She does her own thing. I think someone drives her to different places. I don't know. I didn't bother to ask that, and that's, I really don't care. But she still lives by herself. She may get help with home repairs and things like that, but other than that, she takes care of her house by herself. Yeah, we were talking, like I said, we were talking about weather. How weird it has been. But after today, it's supposed to be back into the 60s and 70s. That's Fahrenheit. Probably about 15 to maybe 20, 22 or 3 Celsius for those that use that scale. But we definitely could use this rain. We've been dry for quite some time. The river level, I cross the Des Moines River. I very rarely cross the Raccoon River, but when I cross the Des Moines River, I have seen it still pretty low. But where when one of my other sisters brought me home, one of my a different sister picked me up. I rode home with my two sisters who share a house, but we crossed the river and there's construction, and what they're doing is they're going to do some modification to the riverbed to turn it into a rafting area so that there would be rapids. So they're already starting on the first phase of that project. It's going to take several years for that whole thing to be fully completed, but they have started on it. But they sure picked a wet day to do it, so they might not have been doing any of the work today. Being Easter Sunday, for those that do celebrate, plus the weather, they probably had that day off. They'll probably get back at it tomorrow. But it'll be interesting to see how well that will work, considering how nasty the water is. Would anybody want to paddle down it? We do have some boat races farther north, over north of the Botanical Center, which is north of what used to be known as the Center Street Dam. That thing is still there. I think I've heard some noise that is going to get ripped out as part of this river renovation process, because apparently it's no longer being used as an energy producer. It used to provide electricity because it has the turbines in it, or it did have. Right now there is no water going over it because the river level is too low, so water has to be let out through it or at the ends of it. But they have, like, those really skinny boats that you might see in, I think they call it sculling. They're boats with maybe one or two people, and then you have some that have 8 rowers on it. So up in that part of the river, north of the Botanical Center, they have those races during the summer. I never watched them. But I have seen the signs where people can go when those are going on. They said a regatta viewing area. But I've never watched those particular races. Maybe one of these days I might. But that is a much calmer area of the river north of that dam. And I don't try to fish the river in the downtown area because it has been so low, plus there's so much crap in it. Trash and who knows what else. I've tried a few times, but all I've done was either just lose my hook, the line gets busted, or I would put one of my artificial lures on it and I'd lose it. I said, nope. I don't want to lose any more of those. So I just wait till I go to the lake. Yeah, that's like I said, nasty stuff. And who knows what all that crap is. Even if I were to catch a fish out of it, I don't know if I could clean it enough to get rid of all that stuff. But Lake Icaria, yeah. I would eat a fish out of there, no problem. Although last summer the fishing was absolute crap anyway. One of my nephews caught a big old catfish, but then a heron stole it. He had it on a stringer and the heron stole it. Now there's some blue herons who hang around Lake Icaria. And they have gotten used to all the people fishing around there. Easy meal. But I'm hoping this summer the weather will be better and the fishing will be better. I just finished off the orange drink. Canadian orange. The flavor's a bit better. But I wanted to pull this one out and save the fruit punch for another day. This fruit punch is in the shaker bag. It's the electrolyte version. And this one has a date code impressed into it. 200th day of 2024. Now these shaker pouches would be nice for on the go, but unlike the Canadian beverage bag, it's not gusseted. Yeah, I don't know what else to talk about tonight. If any of the new viewers are still watching, if you have any other questions, I'm no expert by any stretch when it comes to rations. I'm nothing on Steve 1989. He researches. He's probably got connections like you wouldn't believe to try to get a hold of rations that the rest of us wouldn't be able to get a hold of. He's got years. I've had people ask me about the tray I use. I found this one on eBay. It happens to be the tray that another guy who did reviews used. He was up in Canada. His channel used to be called Apple Stuff, Bushcraft Stuff and Things. I think he shortened it, but I haven't seen anything from him for a long time. I don't know if he is even still putting up videos. But he had a tray like this. I saw it. I wanted to have one because it was green. I like green things. So I eventually found one on eBay, and it came with two little cups. Identical, except one has a little tiny stub of a handle, whereas the other one does not. And then the other tray that I started out using was a 1983 kind of a buttercream colored Tupperware lunch tray. It's a little bit longer than this, a little bit wider, but it only has the one area that, say, I put my spork in there, put a spoon there. Then it had one large area, like this whole area combined into one, and then the two side areas were of equal size, so they're both square areas. I could put my delicious mug in there, and it would sit just fine. Whereas even my drinking jar is too wide for these areas here, but I can put it in that one. So until I got this one, I was only using that Tupperware tray. But because it's such a light color, it has taken on some staining from the food I've had on it, just like this one has, but this one, it's because it's darker, it's a lot less noticeable. I don't wash these in a dishwasher. For one thing, my dishwasher, the countertop that it was mounted to, one spot has disintegrated, so it's off kilter. So I just don't use that dishwasher anymore. Plus, it's old. I just use it for dish storage. That's all I use it for now. I hand wash everything, so. But yeah, I only used that tray at first until I got this one. But if I have something like a Norwegian Arctic field ration, or I may use it when I do that experimental long-range patrol ration, where I need a spot that would hold a larger amount of food. That 10 bag LRP, I had to fill up more than just this part on this tray. I should have used the Tupperware tray for that one. I wasn't expecting it to make a huge amount of food, so because it's a freeze dried. Is when Mountain House used to be called Oregon Freeze Dry. And on some of their labels, you still may see Oregon Freeze Dry on there, along with the Mountain House name. But that's what Mountain House used to be known as, Oregon Freeze Dry, since it was started in the state of Oregon. But I may use that Tupperware tray for that brown bag LRP. I have a foreign MRE mug, but it dropped, so it's busted. I can't use that anymore. It's cracked, so I can't put any liquid in it. It would be nice if I could get a hold of another one, but I don't know if I'll ever be able to find another one of those. But since I got this mug from Delicious in Poland, I've been using it. Then I got a mug from Mike Kreischer, so once in a while that one will come out to play. I wouldn't mind getting a Germs MRE mug. Maybe that will happen in the near future. But it's a good thing I have this one to fall back on. See, this side has his YouTube handle. Try not to spill my coffee. I just finished it off. So Delicious MRE, or you just search for Delicious and this logo, you'll find it. He also has, this side has his Polish language website. Like you can have it translated. But he also has a channel in Polish. I'm subscribed to it, but I don't see much coming up on that one. In fact, I can't remember the name of it right now. But even though I don't know much Polish, I still like to watch his Polish channel, to see what he shows on it. I still get something out of it. Earlier today, I watched a video from This and That with Matt. He had a CR1M, a Menu G from Australia. I think that one was a 21. He liked some of the things in it, some of the things not so much. Welcome, Glitch. There are kosher certified rations available. There's a company called La Briute, Labriute. They are the current producer for kosher certified rations. They get some of their components from MRE Star, some standard mil spec items like some of the things that I had tonight in this MRE. Labrie replaced another one called My Own Meals, which did the same thing. And some of the My Own Meals entrees are also certified halal as well as certified kosher. So I've had a few of those, some vegetarian, a couple of them with meat. I like the My Kind of Chicken. I've actually seen that entree on eBay pop up a few times. Just the entree by itself, not the accessory pack, which has everything else that you would need for that meal. But La Briute has vegetarian and meat entrees. And their chicken gumbo was pretty darn good. So if you're looking for kosher rations, check out La Brioute. That may help you find things you're looking for. No, I'm not talking politics. I'm just giving you some ideas for certified kosher. If you're looking to get into rations, I would definitely recommend those. The mild meals, yeah, the certified halal ones that are done by Sapaco, which is one of, see, this company here, Sapaco, they do the certified halal MREs that come in similar packaging to this, except for this is clear instead of tan color like this is. But there are a couple of new menus in that lineup. The only thing is, you don't get any hot drink options in any of the certified halal MREs. And these 24-pack US MREs, a lot of them don't have coffee either, so that's why I got it from my stash. But I've done halal certified French. I've had some halal certified British rations. I tried to get a hold of a German one, but the problem with that one is the seller, their system that they use for receiving payments would not accept a U.S. payment, no matter what the funding source was. If you had a PayPal balance and it was in U.S. dollars, it would not accept it. So I had to tell the seller that, it's not accepting my payment. And then I had the same thing with, I think it was a Danish ration I tried to buy. Same thing. I could not get the payment to be accepted by their system. It was not something with eBay. It was something on the seller's end that a U.S. payment is not being accepted, and I have no way to convert it. So again, I had to tell the seller that the payment is not being accepted because it's in dollars or coming from a U.S. account, and I have no way to change that. So they had to cancel those orders, so I was kind of bummed about not being able to get those rations. But I will, I certified kosher food. I've done it before. I'll do it again. I've gone to a store that had some things that are marked, certified kosher. Yeah, I'll buy them. In fact, we have a few of those items at Halal Groceries where I buy my halal meats from, and some of the spices that I get. But I've gone into a Walmart, found things like that. Some of the other stores that no longer exist here in Des Moines, I have found things like that. That anything that's different than what I grew up with, it's just fun being a foodie. Being that I live on a disability, I can't afford to do a whole lot, but this is one of the things that I am able to do with the little bit of revenue I get from the ads and the super chats and super stickers and whatever else I get from YouTube. That goes right back into the channel for buying rations, or I may buy a piece of gear to test out, or I may buy something that would help me with my streaming or video production, like the phone mount that I'm currently using. That was an upgrade over another one. I still have it, but it's just no longer stable. The clamp just does not hold very well. It's just not as strong and secure as this one that I have now. It's a lot beefier. It can accommodate a wider phone, even in the case. So that's what I got, but I will still keep the old one as a backup. Yeah, when you got pups, you got to take care of them. And my oldest sister's dog is a 12, almost 13-year-old pit mix. And for her age, she's still pretty active. She is definitely curious. And she gets along good with the cat. And she was very well behaved last summer at the lake. Pretty good for her second time being there. She wasn't so sure the summer before, but last summer, even with the chaos of all the wind and the storms, and just all the kids running around, people going in and out of the cabins area, she did very well. And I think this summer will probably be even better. And a good looking pup. But Lily does get excited when there's a lot of people around. Yeah, she just wants to be where all the action is. And their cat Penelope, she'll get some love and then she'll go off and find some place to sleep. Typical of a cat. And Pumpkin is in my bedroom sleeping somewhere. Now she's almost 7. I have no idea of her actual age because I got her when she was 2. and I have no idea when she was born. I don't know if the guy who brought her to me even knew that. So I guess that this summer she will be 7 years old, and I've had her. Yeah, it's 5 years just about. Yep, still living the good life. As long as you can still get around and you know eat and drink good. Yeah, take care of his business and still enjoy life. Yeah, they'd be doing pretty good. Yeah, but my family has had dogs since I can remember, and we've had cats. At one time, we had a couple of rabbits. They didn't belong to us, but these two friends were taking a long trip and they needed someone to look after their rabbits. So they brought them to us. So we took care of them for those 2 months. Yeah, we enjoyed that, and we had a pet skunk for a while. But he was out in the horse barn at the YMCA camp, and yeah, he was let out there to roam and just have more room instead of being in the house all the time. He did have his scent gland removed before we got him. We had named him Sweet William because he actually was a sweetheart. He loved lettuce and he could eat chocolate. He had no problem with that. But the one winter out, he was out in the horse barn, and apparently it got too cold and he just froze. Otherwise, if he would have either been in a different area or if he would have been inside the house, he would have lived a while longer. But yeah, we've had, and of course, I have had some small birds in the past. I rescued a lovebird out of a bad living situation. Yeah, I had some zebra finches. I had a European linnet. He didn't live very long, but I enjoyed his company while he did live with me. I had a male canary. I had a blue, black, and white parakeet. Plus the lovebird. She was a peach face violet factor. At least that's how I was able to get her identified as far as her color variant. But the last few years of her life, she had a bigger cage. She had better food. But the one day she just lost her footing. She liked to be sideways in the cage instead of just stand up straight with her head up. She liked to be sideways, and I guess one day she just lost her footing and fell and snapped her neck. Well, it depends on the bird. Now there are YouTube channels that I watch. They do have birds. Hedgehog's Homestead, they have a heritage turkey hen, and she is squatting down like she's waiting for a male. So they may try to get a male of that particular breed for her. But she hangs out with the chickens and the ducks. And of course, they also have one pig. They had two others, but those two other pigs are in their freezer. And then they inseminated the third pig, so they're going to have piglets in June. And of course, Wide Family Farm, they have chickens, turkeys, and Muscovy ducks. And a friend here Tech and her wife Brenda have chickens at their place, so they get eggs every day. Well, almost every day. They don't have a huge number of chickens. But of course, the Brahms family, yeah, I've known them for a few years, and I've camped on their property a few times. They have turkeys, chickens, and I think they have some ducks. Plus, they have their orchard and their garden and greenhouses. So next month they'll be starting up with the farmers markets around their area. But they have already been selling eggs from their chickens. And there's some other channels that I watch. They have chickens. Some might have turkeys as well. And of course, a guy who recently retired from the Iowa State Legislature, Akil Abdul Samad, he has 3 birds. He has a scarlet macaw, and he has 2 cockatoos. They have both, the white crest. They don't have the yellow on the tops of their heads like some cockatoos do, and then some have red in their tails, but these birds are all white. But he actually brought one of his birds to the Eid party, but I didn't see him because I was in another area. I was watching the kids break the piñatas. Yeah, we had a couple of piñatas that the kids busted. We had 2 of them. And of course, we had a food truck doing the hamburgers and hot dogs. And those are supplied by Hillel Groceries. In fact, I mentioned the name of that food truck, Kamal's Mediterranean Grill. They had gone to the school that my oldest sister works at. Guess there's some event there for teachers, or maybe not the squad, some event that she had gone to with other teachers, and a couple of different times she has had their food. So they've done some of our meals during Ramadan. But they go to different parts of Des Moines and the suburbs. They got a Facebook page. Yeah, he retired from the Iowa State Legislature, so he's focusing solely on Creative Visions, which is an organization that he founded. Yeah, he just wanted to kind of back off things, you know. He's getting older just like the rest of us. Wanting to slow down a little bit, enjoy life a little bit more. You know, don't have so much stuff to deal with that could stress you out. But yeah, Kamal's Mediterranean Grill. It's a bright green colored food truck, and they've done falafel, chicken shawarma. They've done the gyros, sandwiches on the pita, among other things. So I definitely recommend them. In fact, I invited them to be a food vendor for the White Eagle Multicultural Powwow in September. So another committee member brought me a vendor application, so I passed that on to the guy who does the cooking and owns that food truck. So he's definitely interested. So that's not the area that I focus on for the powwow. I do the kids crafts, but yeah, I think I know of a possible new vendor who might be interested. We'll see if he'll bite, and who knows, he just might. But I'll find out later on if he does respond, and if he has that particular weekend off, the third weekend in September, at Jester Park. And who knows? We may have another food vendor for that. Yeah, he decided not to run for re-election, and Rob Johnson. I've got to meet him a few times, but he won his Akao's seat, so he is representing the House district that Akao did. I live just a couple of blocks away from that district boundary, so I could not vote for him. I'm in Ruth Ann Gaines's district. But yeah, I've gotten to know Rob Johnson. I've met him a few times. But yeah, he is in Akao's seat now. Yeah, Akao has had some heart issues off and on, so cutting down on those things that can cause stress will definitely be good for his health. Yeah, she has been around. I've known her for a few years, not as long as I have known a Kale, but I have met her a few times when I have gone to the Capitol. I haven't been there in the last few years. I probably should go back. A few times I've done videos on how to lobby the legislature. I should go do that again before the session ends, because it's due to end sometime this month. I don't know if that process has changed, but I really should do that while they're still in session so I can catch video of people actually doing it. Yeah, you don't have to be some big shot corporate representative or PR type person to do that. Anyone can go up to the Senate chamber or the representative chamber and fill out a little piece of paper, hand it to the door attendant, say you want to talk about or provide information on a specific bill or topic of discussion. Yeah, anybody can do that. But I haven't shot a lobbying process video in a few years, so I really should do that before the session ends. Yeah, we're all getting there. I'm 59. Like my mom was telling my younger nephew, don't get old. Now, like, that's going to be something he can control, but I'm just going to have a swig from my bottle since I still have some water in it. But now that things have slowed down, at least for me, I don't have so much to do as far as getting ready for anything at the mosque other than next Saturday. Some of us will be doing some yard work and rose planting. I'll do what little bit I can. I only own a couple of little hand tools like that combination garden fork and trowel that I picked up at a thrift store that still had one of those. It looked like it had never been used. They had some of them that were just a little claws, but I saw the one with the little spade on it. You know, that one might be a better one to have because I can do two different things with the one tool. So that's why I decided to go for that one. Yep, I think it's time for me to go ahead and call this one good anyway. It was good seeing a bunch of new names I had not seen before. I like it when that happens. And I hope those new viewers enjoyed what they saw. There are other people who do this sort of thing. I'm not the only one. Everybody has their own style. Some people are able to get different things that I cannot, but that's okay. It's just all part of the fun. But I do want to thank you all for hanging out with me tonight. Again, I do this every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, or Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern, that's U.S. time. Except during Ramadan, where I am at the mosque every night, or I may be at a location where I'm not able to, say I'm away from home, I may be on a trip, or just getting back and I won't get back in time to really get it going at this time, or I'm just too exhausted, just want to relax and not bother trying to set up. But in the event that I would not be able to go live, if I know enough time in advance, I'll toss a post up to say that I won't be live. But other than that, every Sunday night, I do this. I hope to see you all again soon. Thanks for watching and catch you on the flip side.